gracious host has mentioned, today I will be talking to you about fostering a love of reading. Now, you might be wondering how reading as whole would connect to being unique. But I'd like to tell you that, in fact, those two things correlate to each other very closely. First of all, some of the previous speakers have mentioned what uniqueness is. However, the way I choose to interpret uniqueness is that to be unique, we don't need to be entirely different to everybody else, because, let's be honest, there are a lot of people in this world, and to be different from every and each single one of them creates an undue stress that we don't deserve. To be unique is to make decisions, have ideas, and lead our lives in such a manner that we're able to make sense of it, that we're able to provide the reasoning that is only important and actually only really for us. We don't need to provide reasoning for actions towards anybody else. What makes us unique is that we live our lives according to ourselves and ourselves only. And reading is an incredible tool in order to achieve that. Reading is a transformative experience that takes us through several different stages of life, through different experiences, and literature as a whole is a very important tool for personal growth and development. I'd like to give you a personal example to that. There is a storybook, a fairy tale, that I read when I was 7 years old. One of those really tiny ones with only a few pages that you ever really only read if you're learning how to read. And the title of this book was The Most Beautiful Tree in the World. And within the story, there was this tree who shaped her hair into different looks. First off, she tried to brush it up, and then she tried to make a ponytail. Then it was a middle part, and so on and so forth. This tree tried to make herself beautiful by changing her hair. Now, the story might seem insignificant, however, it's actually pretty important in the sense that up until recently, I used to wear my hair very long. Most of you have seen me like that, and most of you were surprised when I came back from winter break and suddenly all of it was gone. I no longer had long hair, and now I continue to use it short. That was surprising for most, if not all, and everyone in my life had an opinion that they just had to share with me. I had to know what they thought of my hair, my body, and they weren't shy when they were sharing their opinions either. Whether that be classmates, some of you in the audience, whether that be teachers, family members, friends, or simply those I had no idea who they were. Maybe they were friends of my parents, maybe they were friends of friends, but whether they liked my hair short or whether they thought that I should have kept it long, they shared those opinions with me. However, because of that story, I already knew that in order to be unique to myself, in order to make decisions that affect me, since it's my life, those opinions didn't matter to me. Because just like in the fairy tale, when the tree had changed her hair, she lost all of her friends. Her branches were no longer habitable for birds, for insects, for butterflies. But when she made her hair into a shape that was both comfortable, practical, and actually very aesthetically pleasing, she got to keep all of her animal friends, and now I get to live my life without any person sharing their opinion or changing the way I choose to live it. So, reading can actually affect us. It can predict future events because it shapes our personalities. To dig deeper into what reading is, or the power of stories are, it is obviously powerful since I've done something a decade later, I'm now 17 years old, and I've changed my hair. I'm very happy with the way I've changed my hair. But there are other reasons why stories are so very powerful. First of which is that they're able to create a new world, a world of imagination for young children. If we choose to read stories to children that include fantastical things or fantastical events in them, they're able to imagine and reach for that impossible, which is only ever improbable. A second reason why stories are powerful is that, like I said, they are able to predict future events because they put those ideas in our mind that it is actually possible. Take Jules Verne, for example. He wrote the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Now, when Jules Verne wrote this, it was the late 19th century. However, traveling 20,000 leagues deep into the sea was impossible back then. And though it might not be possible today, we've sure come a long way since back then. Or The Little Prince. Planets and stars and everything, space travel. It wasn't possible back then, but if we look at today, those are things that we have either achieved or humanity is close to reaching those specific goals. To give more modern examples, we have the Percy Jackson series or the Harry Potter books. Now those stories are fantastical and obviously cannot happen in real life. However, those stories put those ideas into children's minds that they're able to achieve more than they're capable of, at least right in that moment. A third reason why stories hold the power that they do is because as humans, we have an inherent drawing. We're drawn to tell stories. It's how we continue civilization. It's how we continue to survive. That's what makes it possible. Because when you tell stories, you're able to pour your knowledge into the next generation. And we're able to adapt. Back, thousands of years back, when they told stories, they were able to warn children. They were able to give the knowledge that they had so the younger ones could continue to survive after their elders have passed. That continues to be true today. A second reason why reading is important and should be important to all of you is that reading builds empathy. Now, that empathy is important, especially in young children, is because that shapes their social skills and how they approach social situations and connections entirely. In a research study published by the York University, they found that people, young children, who read narrated stories, narrated fiction especially, they had better connections. They had better social connections, they had self-confidence, and the better imagination they had actually played into the real-life connections that they had. For example, a narrated fictional story might include a statement like, because he no longer had his friends, he was feeling very disappointed and upset. Now, that young child who has read the narrated fiction knows how to react in a specific social situation. And narrated fiction actually tells the emotions characters might feel. Therefore, young children have a better sense of empathy if they have read narrated fiction. Now, this study also focused on the effect of narrated fiction in adults. And they found that narrated fiction, although it might seem like a leisurely activity with no other purpose than to enjoy oneself, adults who've read fictional stories have better social skills because they're able to shape connections. Now, those social skills, by the way, are predicted social skills. They found that those who didn't read at all and those who read fictional stories had the same number of friends. However, the people who read fictional stories ranked a higher number of people that they felt they belonged to, that they felt they could confide in. So the predicted social companions they had was higher. Therefore, they were more optimistic, they were happier. They didn't feel alone or lonely like the ones who didn't read fictional stories then. And by this study, we can very easily say that fictional stories, they're not just leisurely activities. Their only purpose isn't to enjoy ourselves, which, let's be honest, fictional stories are very fun and make somebody happy to read. However, they actually help us in real life situations. There's a third point that I'd like to make, and that is the benefits that reading provides, both cognitive and emotional. Now, the Education College at University of Rochester, experts there, have found that young children who read have a better sense of not only empathy, but cognitive flexibility. Cognitive actions or cognitive abilities refers to anything and everything your mind does. It's the wonder of the human brain. Cognitive abilities might include the ability to remember, to recall memories. Cognitive abilities include better connection between ideas, the ability to articulate oneself, and problem-solving skills, critical thinking. All of these are cognitive abilities, and children who read have better cognitive flexibility, so the ability to perform those actions. And not only that, experts say that they also have emotional benefits for children. Now, those emotional benefits, first and foremost, is the connection that they shape with their parents or guardians, adults in their life, who read them those stories. Because as babies, as toddlers, we don't know how to read. However, time spent with parental figures who read those stories shape connection to those people. So they have a person that they feel safe with. It also builds self-confidence. And, like I have previously said, empathy. Children have empathy. They become compassionate people later in life. And therefore they are able to lead and navigate their world much easier. Because they have those social skills, they have those emotional skills, their emotional intelligence, or EI, as we call it, their cognitive abilities. All of those are heightened than the ones that don't. And the most, I think, interesting part of the study at the University of Rochester is that experts have found the minimum or the time needed to read to young children for them to gain these benefits is just 15 minutes. 15 minutes a day that you read with a young child, and then later on in life, they become this incredible person that is not only social, but also academically very skilled. The third point that I'd like to share with you is why fostering a love of reading is important. I've told you that reading for young children is very beneficial, but none of us here are young children. We are teenagers, adolescents, we are young adults that are just on the verge of crossing into our lives. We're going to be going off to university, we're going to build relationships. Why should reading matter to us? Why should we spend time that we could spend with our friends instead of reading? And the reason for that is very particular. There's a study, a research, published by Turkish researchers. And they did their research on Turkish teenagers. In the research, they made a group of teenagers read for 4 weeks. And in the end, they had scales and measures that calculated their level of optimism, their negativity, and other things. What they found was very interesting in the sense that adolescents who read for a month, a single month, had better self-confidence. And also they found that reading in teenagers is a matter of positive psychology. Positive psychology refers to the action that you can take before negative things happen, such as depression or being a pessimistic person in teenagers. They found that just like when COVID was a thing and we had to get vaccinated in order to prevent, to not have COVID, reading works the same way in us. If we read, we have better self-confidence, we have hope, we have imagination, and we have the tools that we need, the emotional tools, in this time of new physical and psychological needs that we have never before experienced. By reading, we can better withstand peer pressure, as reading creates a positive psychology. Now, when fostering a love of reading, we can just say, hey, let's all read. It doesn't happen like that, although it would have been great if that were the case. We have an incredible library over at the other building that we can use. We can create new book signings and readings, things to draw our students into the library so they too can read and know that reading is actually an enjoyable activity. For young children, modeling behavior is truly important. And by modeling behavior, I mean that other people in young children's life, whether you're their older brother, you're their older sister, or their parent, when you start to read yourself, children are drawn to replicating the actions you perform. So modeling reading yourself, would encourage a younger child to also start reading and foster a love of reading in them. Now, before I let you go, I'd like to say that, as a closing remark, I would like all of you to think back to a memory or a piece of literature, a story. It doesn't have to be a specific thing. It can be a non-fiction, a fictional story, anything and everything that you believe might have predicted, might have changed your psychological beliefs, might have changed you as a person, that today you recall to the actions and things that have taken place in that story.